Hello and welcome to another chess guess video where you can try and guess the moves of great chess champions of the past. So today we have Alexander Alekhine, the fourth world chess champion. This game was from a simultaneous exhibition in 1933. So Alekhine was playing against multiple players. He had the white pieces and he begins with e4. So try and guess the moves of Alekhine. So maybe you can learn to attack like Alekhine. He was noted as being a great attacking player. And you can try and guess the moves of his opponent as well. So the game continues with e5. So we have e4, e5. And now how does Alekhine continue? Knight to f3, a good move, putting pressure on that pawn. The game continues with knight to c6, and feel free to leave comments if there's something you think that you would like better in these chess guess videos. Do you want me to have more commentary, less commentary, no commentary? Sometimes I see videos like this where there's no commentary and it's just a game being played out in silence. All right, bishop to b5. So now we have the Ruy Lopez or Spanish game here in this chess opening. This opening is known to be a good solid choice for white. And what is happening here? The knight puts pressure on that pawn in the center. The bishop does too indirectly by attacking the knight, which is defending that pawn. So Alekhine's opponent plays d6. This is the old Steinitz defense to the Ruy Lopez here. And now the game continues with what by Alekhine? Well, he immediately attacks the center, adding more pressure to that pawn on e5. The bishop breaks the pin of this knight to the king. And what does Alekhine do next? He captures. So after recapture, capturing with the bishop instead of the pawn, that way you don't break up your pawns over here. What should Alekhine do next? What would you do in this position? Alekhine finds the best move according to the computer here. It's given a star. Just developing another piece. And if you're an attacking player like Morphy or Alekhine, it's very important to develop as many pieces as you can as quickly as possible to get them into the fight. So after a capture here, queen recaptures. So this is the first inaccuracy of the game. The computer probably preferred the knight to capture and attack that bishop. The bishop would either have to be remain there and be captured, busting up the pawns, or maybe retreat back. But as I mentioned, Alekhine, a great attacker, he decides to recapture with the queen, getting yet another piece into the game. So now Alekhine has 3 pieces developed. His opponent only has 1 at the moment. So knight to f6 is played. And now what does Alekhine do? See if you can guess. All right. He follows, or continues with his theme of getting all his pieces out as fast as possible, developing a bishop, pinning a knight. So how should his opponent respond? What does his opponent do in response? We have a break in this pin. So the knight was pinned to the queen, but now his opponent breaks the pin and develops a piece, and he's also ready to castle. So what does Alekhine do next? He castles queenside. So this move gets his king out of the center where it's a little safer over here on the queen side, but at the same time, it develops another piece. So now there's a rook queen battery aimed up here through the center. Alekhine's opponent responds with castling, trying to get that king safe. And now what does Alekhine do? Well, if we follow the theme of developing all your pieces, this rook is the major piece that he hasn't developed yet. So what do you think he will do? Well, an obvious guess would be to move that rook to the center, but maybe he tries to develop that rook in a different way. He pushes this pawn. Now the computer says that this is a mistake, but Alekhine, being a great attacker, and I'm not familiar with his opponent. If it was a simultaneous exhibition, his opponent may not even have been a chess master. He may have been just an average club player. All right, so what does this move do? Well, it gives this rook a little bit more space. Maybe the pawn will attack the bishop and he lets it be captured, opening up a line for this rook towards the king. Let's see what happens. His opponent does, in fact, attack the bishop. And now what should Alekhine do? Now here, Alekhine plays this knight to d5 move, which is considered a blunder. The game is still probably pretty even, but the computer doesn't like this move. Probably it preferred pushing the pawn up to e5 instead, attacking pawn and knight. And he doesn't want to retreat this bishop because, like I said, if that's captured, the pawn can recapture, and then there'll be an open line on the h-file up towards the king. So let's see how the game continues. We have a capture of the bishop. Now, before recapturing, first the knight knocks out one of these defenders over here. Queen captures. Pawn finally recaptures here. Now the knight is under attack. So that knight jumps forward, grabbing material. The computer says this was a missed opportunity, so maybe there was something a little bit better. But to keep the video moving along, let's try and guess what Alekhine does here. We have rook to h5. So helping guard this pawn, preventing the knight from capturing as the queen is attacking it as well. And now this pawn cannot move forward and attack the rook, or the queen would be able to deliver a mate up here on h8. So we have queen to e6, a blunder by Alekhine's opponent. What should he have done? Well, probably he should have moved this f-pawn out to give his king an escape route, perhaps. But I don't know. Even then, the g-pawn could push forward, kind of cutting off the king's escape. So let's see what Alekhine does here, if he takes advantage of this queen blunder. He finds the best move, doubling rooks up. So now there's an immediate mate threat here. The pawn pushes forward, the best move in the position, giving the king an escape hatch. But now we have an interesting move next by Alekhine. See if you can figure out what Alekhine does here, because he's about to play a brilliant move. All right, what do you think he does? Knight to e5, a brilliant move by Alekhine, placing that knight right where it can be attacked. The game continues with pawn capturing. And now the queen is under attack. So what is Alekhine to do here next? He pushes the G pawn. And now Alekhine's opponent resigns here. So there's an immediate threat of jumping up here, delivering a mate in one as the pawn is cutting off the escape. But before we see what the opponent could do here, let's take a quick game review for the accuracy percentages here. All right, it looks like 84.4% for Alekhine versus 68.9% for his opponent. So Alekhine, could have played more accurately, but it was a simultaneous exhibition, so he was probably having fun, not looking for the best moves, but maybe the more exciting moves. And it says he played at a 2250 level versus 1600 by his opponent. There were some blunders and some one mistake and some missed opportunities. So back to what could have happened here. Now, one obvious move may be, you can't move the rook or it's still a mate up here because the king doesn't have time to run. You have to get rid of this pawn. So now I'll turn on the analysis and see what could have been played. It looks like it's still a mate in 4, but the best way to slow things down is to capture the pawn. Now the king might have an escape route here, but there's a possibility of queen to c4 check. And here, there's nothing black can do but delay the inevitable. So maybe bishop blocks, but the queen captures. Then the queen blocks, but the queen captures. Now the rook finally blocks, but that leads to checkmate on h8. All right, well, hopefully that was an entertaining little game there by Alekhine. So I encourage you to look at more Alekhine games in the future, especially if you're an attacking player or you want to improve your attacking skills. You can definitely learn a lot from a great attacking and former world champion like Alekhine. All right, as always, feel free to leave comments. I enjoy hearing from viewers and subscribers. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.